ready, fire, aim. It's a saying that is often said with a bit of humor, kind of reflecting back on moments of chaos, right? Things were coming at us so fast, we didn't have time to think or plan. We had to be ready, fire, aim. Implying that, they were quick starts moving forward with the project or initiative before they knew entirely what they were doing. Go and figure it out along the way. Jump and grow wings on the way down. I can think of, 10 different ways to say that off the top of my head, as opposed to its alternative, ready, aim, fire, which at surface level is more logical, right? It implies a little more accuracy, a little more time and energy exhausted on precision. If you're gonna shoot the arrow, it makes sense to know where it's going, right? And while which one of these two phrases is right, in my mind is somewhat context dependent, I'm going to explain to you why the first one has changed my life. The ready, fire, aim approach. To put it simply, it's because in the past, I've been prone to overanalyze, to, over-extensively weigh out the pros and cons, and that's resulted in being paralyzed by options. It creates stagnation, immobility, which is what you don't want, right? The greatest improvements in my life, personally, have been from going before I was ready. The simple idea that you don't have to know, and in fact you won't, but you have to start. And life starts providing you these little pieces of wisdom, these little puzzle pieces to start constructing reality. It's the thought process that, sure, you don't want to go in blind, right? Have a foundation, educate yourself, but the vast majority of the value is going to come from what's learned along the way. Even if on paper you theoretically had all the answers, life's variables are constantly changing. They're transforming what was once truth. The ability to adapt is often, far more important than what you know when you begin. You can watch 300 tutorials on how to put out a YouTube video. Finally, after a month, feel like you have enough info, release one, and ultimately you'll just realize how much doesn't apply to you in your situation. How much falls through the cracks, how much was unforeseen, right? Or you can release it to the world as soon as you possibly can and get 300 videos worth of knowledge by simply doing, going, experiencing, learning in real time. That's where the magic is. I recently put on a retreat for my new project called Levels. And I'd never run a retreat before, right? I knew there would be things that didn't go exactly how I thought they would or weren't perfect. And theoretically, we could have picked a date 6 months out and over-planned and over-considered. But ultimately, chose to pick a date 1 month out, plan the best we could, and start creating momentum, get the process going, start collecting data, learning what works and what didn't. We hedged a little bit. We invited folks that were close to us, that were friends or business acquaintances, but the focus was on getting the ball rolling, and it ended up being an absolutely incredible experience. One of the best weekends of my life. The feedback was just phenomenal. And yeah, the next one will certainly have some changes. There are some things we'll do differently. But we have data, we have experiences, we have earned confidence. You cannot read that or study that. That's info you can only get by walking down the path. There's a ton of value you can get in life by simply looking around and asking, where have I been aiming too long without firing? That's not a place you want to be. And we all know this, right? We all know that person that's always talking about what they're going to do, Someday, just you wait, you'll see. It's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Because two things can be true at once. First, it's true for them. If they don't go, they'll never get there. But second, there are areas in all of our lives where it's true for us. We just have a hard time seeing it. Right? The old parable, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Give life a chance to open up for you. Push hard against the unknown. The most important things you'll ever experience in life will be because of your doing, not your thinking or planning or discussing. And you won't be perfect. Sometimes you'll swing and miss the target altogether. But what you will be able to do is reapproach stronger and wiser. You'll be able to come back more informed and with that edge that will allow you to ultimately succeed. That is how excellence is created. Ready, fire, aim. I was talking to my friend on the phone this morning, and he's been on a very long journey. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, but now he's doing incredibly well. He's heavily invested in real estate, has a very successful business. I mean, you talk about a turnaround, he's it. And he says, Eddie, do you know what the best part of all this is? When I get up in the morning, I think, yes. I don't think, oh man, I wish I could sleep just a few more minutes. I don't wish for a little longer in bed. I think, yes. And I found that moving. If that's not peak living, I don't know what is. The second your eyes open to be excited about what's to come, right? And so I asked him, Tom, what's the biggest mental change you made in your life that brought that about? And he said, essentially, this is a term used a lot by Dan Sullivan. He says, I learned to always be the buyer. Now, I'm just starting reading Sullivan's books, so I'm not too familiar with the idea. I said, Tom, can you expand upon that a little bit? Paraphrasing, he said, he started to look at life like he was worthy of it, like he was the decision maker. Right? And I don't know if you've been there, I certainly have, where it's like, man, I hope this person accepts me. I hope they hire me. I hope I can be included. Now that's an existence of constantly selling yourself. But when you make that mental shift of instead saying, I have value to add to this person, I am the buyer here, you empower yourself, right? A buyer cannot get rejected. Instead of walking around hoping the world accepts you, it's having confidence in yourself and your ability. As my 8th grade teacher, Mr. Betancourt, used to say when we were kids, the worst thing you can do is hold your hands up to the sky and hope something of value falls into them. The worst thing you can do is take the power out of your hands and outsource it to fate. Because the truth is, you do have value to add. There is change you're going to make in the world. There's a beautiful mark on humanity to be created by you. And there must come a time where you see that as a valuable resource. You're on a mission. And it's not about other people saying yes or no to you. It's, do you want to allow these people to come along with you on your mission? Not selling yourself, but buying the pieces that will comprise your greatness. Subtle shift, but also a powerful one. And the reality is, people respect it, right? That's the crazy thing. When you find the courage to dig deep and unlock that confidence in yourself, you get more of it from others. And this is from experience, right? I've never been the loudest guy in the room, not an attention seeker. It's easier for me to listen, right? But I find that when you live with conviction, the world around you conforms. Respect finds you. People will never believe in someone who doesn't believe in him or herself. And this is kind of an interesting note. A good friend of mine has helped do some booking on podcasts and events, right? And part of that's trying to get speakers and personalities to participate. You have to explain to them the value. And this is what I found amazing. He says a formal, well thought out letter stating the ins and outs, how grateful the host would be, how beneficial the experience would be, gets ignored 99 times out of 100. But a simple, hey, X is happening, gonna be incredible, give me a shout, we'll see how we can get you involved, gets responded to way more often. Why? Because you're not selling, you're buying, right? People want to be around those who live with conviction, who have value to add. So make that clear, right? Instead of writing out those 4-paragraph emails asking the world for answers, for assistance. Now, you weren't put here to wait for permission, to tiptoe through life and not make any mistakes. You weren't put here to impress others or be accepted by those around you. You're here to live life on your terms, to make magic, to enjoy the passing moments with the ones you love, spent how you choose to spend them. Never forget how much you mean and how valuable you are. Never forget that you have every right to wake up and say yes. I get out of bed today. I get to chase my dream and bring along with me the people and things that are worthy of the pursuit. That's not arrogance. That's confidence. That's not existing. That's living. In a world of conformity, of please take what I have to offer, in a world of concession, in a world of I don't want to but okay, you have to get to the yes. You have to become the buyer, not only in each specific exchange, but the buyer of a destiny that belongs to you. This has been on my mind recently. The things happening around us that go unnoticed. The work that's unseen. Let me explain. There's an idea that a fish has no idea it's in water, as the water is all it's ever known. And I like to draw parallels to this frequently because I think it's representative of the human condition in so many ways. It has to be. We necessarily block out an infinite number of things in order to focus on what we've decided matters most. In other words, our eyes are spotlights. And the beauty is that this allows us to say yes to that which will push us in a given direction, disregarding everything else. The challenge is that sometimes what's disregarded has value. We can't see the progress we're making as we're building because to build, we have to be focused on the very next brick, on what's in front of us. Step by step, day by day, we see what's next. But what often lives outside that field of vision is what we're becoming. The foundation we're building. That's why the journey can feel frustrating and feel helpless. A lot of the real value kind of floats overhead unnoticed. Now I have infinite examples here. I'll give you one of my favorites. Almost a decade ago, I wanted to make a little acoustic album, singer-songwriter stuff, and I called it Painting the Mississippi, which, if you're ever going to come up with a band name, make it something people can spell, just a side note. Okay, but I was locked in. My heart at the time pulled me in this direction, and I thought of nothing but writing songs. Recording, learning Pro Tools, how to edit and mix music. I thought about promotion, designing album covers, making videos. I'd never done anything like that in my life before. It was all new. And because of that, I'm sure it's no surprise that it was bad. Right? Reality was about to confirm this. I didn't know it yet, but it was coming, right? And I sent it everywhere, all over Boston. It got no traction. I remember just being baffled. My mind went to all those little steps, all the time, all the commitment. I would just sit there thinking, what about all that effort? My eyes were focused entirely like a spotlight on making this happen for months and months and months. And now, what do I have to show for it? Nothing. Maybe even worse than nothing. Embarrassment, a bruised ego, fear of what comes next. If I were a fish, that process was the stream I'd been living in. Not only that, my understanding of life was effort and validation having a one-to-one relationship. Long-term value was something I understood less than Mandarin. It just wasn't something I thought about. But here's what lived outside my field of vision. All that I was becoming. And listen, I know some of these things are said so often that they feel cliche. I get that, right? The classic, well, son, at least you learned. But this, quote-unquote, loss was truly the foundation I would build the next decade on. Here's what younger me learned. Sometimes you work, and you work, and you work, and the results are not there. See, reality is a free market. It'll let you know if you're adding value and if you're not. And what I saw is that sometimes you swing and miss, and it's not personal. In fact, learning to depersonalize these outcomes is what separates the true winners and losers in life, because winning requires taking that data and info and going back to the drawing board. Losing is derived from looking at that result and saying, oh, I must suck then. I must not have what it takes. It was the hardening that I needed. Impossible to see that in real time, right? That was life outside the stream I was swimming in. But oh, how grateful I am for it. To ultimately learn that life does not give charity. No one deserves anything. You either evolve until you can get what's yours, or you miss out on all of it. And see, what I'd love you to do as you march forth into your next unknown is understand that so long as you are humble enough to adapt and learn and grow, there is value happening in real time. And I only remind you because it's very likely that right now in this moment you can't see it. You can't see how what you're going through now will make you stronger. How the setbacks will ultimately make all the difference. You can't see how strong you are because all you're looking at is what's next, and you have to. You're not thinking about what you've conquered or how far you've come. No, that somehow eludes us. So don't let the disappointment of the no results now intimidate you. This is the good stuff, the meaningful stuff. If you're willing to learn as you go, I promise you, even when life seems to be at its darkest, you are ascending a staircase that will bring you where you need to be. As the saying goes, sometimes the quote-unquote wrong choices bring us to the right places. Trust in the value you cannot yet see as you make your way through life. Trust that the dots will connect, that this will all make sense. You simply cannot be effective without some trust in the process. The reason life is not a standardized test with, true and false questions is because it's figured out as we go. So don't deprive yourself of that beauty when the reward is delayed Because, my friend, the magic is now. It's in the will to move forward and the courage to keep your head up. It's in what all this becomes. So believe in you. Trust in yourself. Have the patience to walk that path and see it all materialize. This weekend, I needed to shut off for a little bit. So I got some Chipotle. Yep, big night. Picked a random episode of Game of Thrones, sat on my couch, and I put my feet up. Apparently, though, the universe had other plans for me, because I swear I was a few minutes in and I heard one of the most incredible quotes I've ever heard, which sent me in 400 directions thinking about how to share it and delve into it with you guys on the podcast. So, hey, sometimes you plan to sit there and watch make-believe armies fight, and you end up instead putting together an essay. Life in the big city, right? But the scene I'm talking about, there's a character named Sansa Stark, for anyone who hasn't seen it. And at this point in the show, she's lost her family. Been away from home, essentially on the run for a long time, and was sitting by herself, kind of sulking, reminiscing, building a little replica of her old home in the snow that was on the ground as she sat there. And basically, just to set the scene, this little kid comes up, stomps on it. Sansa gets mad, hits the kid. She's just devastated by everything, exhausted by it all. And roughly that time, a second character walks up. Guy named Peter Baelish. And Sansa, standing up over her broken snow castle, says, "I was trying to remember what everything looked like. I'll never see it again." To which Peter replies, "A lot can happen between now and never. If you want to build a better home, first you must demolish the old one." He's implying that Sansa might think she wants to go home, but home is essentially gone. That place she knew, that place she wants to go back to, it's destroyed. The people she loved are no longer there. She thinks she wants to go back to that place because she's lost and scared and alone, and the human condition is always to return to the comfort of what we left, to recapture that feeling of clarity. But to truly find herself, what she needs to do is destroy that version of home and build a new one. To start again, to become something worthy of a new home, one that's more conducive to life now. Which is her character arc for the rest of the show, right? Slowly evolving into that person. See, life is this interesting cycle of dying and being born again, of leaving old things behind in order to build a new. The old you can only give what the old you always gave. So when life demands more of us, we have a real problem on our hands. What you knew is now insufficient. It's not enough. Sure, it was enough yesterday, but today is a different story. And we're always put in this situation, where the road before us is asking more of us than we've ever given. It demands more than we know how to accommodate. This is when it becomes very easy to misdiagnose home. To think the answer is behind us, what we need is buried beneath what was. When in reality, what was is no longer sufficient. What we really need is to set the past ablaze in order to create space for what must be brought to life. Home is an evolution, a cycle. As our world changes, we evolve right along with it. As old beliefs fall, new ones are built. As the old way is lost, a new way is found. By clinging to old, you sentence yourself to the never Sansa was so adamant about, at the expense of the infinite abundance and opportunity that's out there. It's worth noting that the phoenix does not descend from the clear blue sky. He rises from the ashes. It's after the old world falls that the new one emerges. I'm not the same person I was in 2014 when I left what I was doing to do what I'm doing now. That version of me died. And then again, when I packed up my things and relocated my life and business to South Florida. And then again, when I changed how I positioned myself, how I thought of myself in the world, and again, and a multitude of times since then. This current version of myself is dying as we speak, making room for the new. Every time I find myself at a transition point, it's pain. It's unlearning things I knew to be true, I was sure of. It's taking a sledgehammer to the old realities so that new ones can take their place. So that's saying a lot can happen between now and never. Yeah, anything can exist between now and never. The world is limitless between now and never, if you understand what never means. Because the old you could never have the things, meet the people, go the places, or become the person that you will be someday. The old you could never see the world the way you do or the way that you will. But the old you was never supposed to. What we once called home, our past, our understandings of life, they were critical. They set the stage for now. They brought us this strange intersection of who we once were and who we now need ourselves to be. It's not that crawling on the ground was wrong. It's that we are now required to grow our wings, to set ablaze the previous parameters so that new rules can be written. Change hurts, but it hurts far less than carrying the old you into eternity, while infinite possibility is left on the shelf. It hurts far less than equating your life now to what's been taken away or lost. Rise from the ashes of what was. Life will ask you to be better, more capable. It will ask you for more. Meet its call. Over and over again, meet its call. For anyone willing to let go of the old and give life to the new, a lot can happen between now and never. Deciding who you'd like to be most often starts with leaving the parts of you you no longer want to carry around. So reminisce. Think back. Examine. Because you didn't just arrive at today. This moment is the result of thousands upon thousands of steps and conversations and decisions. Our lives are sculpted like ocean shores, one wave, one gust of wind at a time. And sure, there were certainly events that expedited the process. But the point is, holistically, landscapes take time to materialize, as did this one. But you're not confined to this moment. In fact, you, in and of itself, is an idea. You is a story that incorporates the things you used to do, places you used to go, people you used to know. You is not right now. You is how you summarize the path that created right now. But you can change, because you will always mean what you decide it does. So reminisce, think back, examine, and feel the warmth of the good times. Bask in the moments that lit up your soul. But don't be afraid to pull back the curtain on those things that, well, maybe you aren't too proud of. The things that no longer defined you, perhaps never defined you to begin with. Because see, before we cut ties with those stories and send them out to sea, we must do the hard work of recognizing what they are. Before we can identify the life to be lived, we have to be able to see the one that will live no more. And so it's okay to walk down that road. Those things are no longer you. They are ideas, old ideas, bad ideas, and so they will be relegated to the sands of time. They played their part, as everything does, and now it's time to detach. So reminisce. Think back, examine, grab what you love and let it become your guiding light. Take hold of the meaningful and pour it into the new you, the one you're making now, the one that matters now. You'll need it. Because the old you, it'll try to reemerge. It'll present itself in the shape of old faces with old expectations. Old places connected to old habits, old stories that just don't want to end. But these characters, they played their part. And thank God they did, because now they're recognizable. Now you know to cut ties. You know, I wish it weren't so. I think we all do, but sometimes life requires that we touch that burning hot stove in order to understand that it's hot. It's easy to dismiss these occurrences as a bad thing or wasted time, but I think they're a beautiful thing. Recognizing and mitigating our mistake leaves us with a new foundation to build on, a blank canvas. It makes you not a prisoner to yesterday's work, it makes you an artist again, a designer, a creator. So reminisce, think back and examine, but not to hold on. Reminisce to let go, to say the goodbyes that will make space for the hellos, to free yourself of excess that will make space for the necessities. You've spent a long time designing you. Some of it ideal, but all of it valuable in its own unique way. The reality is that now, in this current moment, not all of it needs to come with you. So reminisce, think back, examine, so that before you move ahead, you know exactly what needs to be left behind.